Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a f***ing con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician.
The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy.
Gavin Newsom has got to be sweating bullets right now because his media darling, Bill Maher, just accidentally exposed the truth. Maher didn't set out to roast him, but what he said lit a firestorm and now, millions are finally seeing Newsom for what he really is, a smooth-talking fraud. And it's not just Maher. The celebrity backlash is snowballing. One of the loudest critics, none other than Joe Rogan, the podcast king, absolutely torched Newsom, blaming him for turning California into a dystopian disaster. I've got the jaw-dropping clips, the reactions, and all the brutal commentary. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because this is one takedown you don't want to miss. Let's get into it.
I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, "Who do you want to run for president?" I mentioned, "I think you'd be good at the job." Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but doesn't think you can win. What do you say to that if you could win look at the swing states, there's only 8 of them.
This is the clip that set Gavin Newsom off to one we're about to break down. It didn't just spark outrage, blew a hole straight through the carefully polished image Newsom's been selling for years. Sure, some voices like Bill Maher still flirt with the idea that Newsom could be presidential material. But let's be real, millions of Americans see him for what he is. Too woke, too disconnected, and too far gone to lead this country. We're talking about a guy who pushed for gender-neutral toy aisles by law and backed policies that would let teachers hide a child's gender transition from their parents. That's not bold leadership, that's ideological overreach. Thanks to Maher, who peeled back the curtain whether he meant to or not, people are finally waking up to it. But Maher wasn't alone. Another big name who isn't buying the Newsom hype? Joe Rogan, the podcast powerhouse, obliterated Newsom's track record. From skyrocketing crime to the collapsing quality of life in California, he didn't hold back when it came to Newsom's White House ambitions either. So buckle up. We're diving into the clips that triggered the meltdown and sparked a firestorm of celebrity backlash. Let's get into it. Asterisk.
Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a f***ing con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold, narrative-driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being. With Newsom, you've got like this construct, this cardboard cutout of a person. I don't think people want that, but they might want it more than they want President Trump.
By the time Joe Rogan dropped his video, Gavin Newsom was already spiraling. The pressure was mounting fast, and his panic was visible to anyone paying attention. Gone was the usual polished politician, replaced by a jittery figure fumbling through press conferences, offering stammering, defensive answers. Bill Maher's takedown had already shaken the foundation. But Rogan's brutal critique that sent shockwaves through the system? When two major cultural heavyweights siege from opposite ends of the spectrum start publicly tearing you apart, it's no longer just a PR crisis, it's a full-blown political reckoning. Newsom, clearly rattled, knew he had to move fast. Desperate to regain control and save face, he finally stepped in to address the chaos unfolding in Los Angeles specifically. The riots he'd previously downplayed or outright ignored. It was a move critics had been demanding for days. By then, The damage was already done. His sudden response didn't read as leadership, it reeked of desperation. The public saw right through it.
Here's your decency, Mr. President. Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it, I'll say it again, it's immoral. You're creating the conditions that you claim you're solving, and you're not. And you're putting real people's lives at risk. This is a serious moment, and it requires serious leadership. And it's time for you to be a commander-in-chief of the United States of America. And I will have your back if you want to work in a relationship of trust and truth in the spirit of our founding fathers. But you come after poor kids, you come after families, we will do everything in our power to stand up and stand in your way.
Instead of addressing the growing unrest that erupted after the ICE protests in California, Gavin Newsom took a different approach. He went on the offensive and aimed his fire at Donald Trump, rather than calming tensions or offering real solutions. Newsom chose to politicize the moment, pouring fuel on an already burning fire. Did you catch how he framed the ICE's arrests? He painted them as brutal attacks on innocent families and children, a dramatic spin but not exactly surprising. This is straight out of the woke left's playbook. Twist the narrative, stir up outrage, and make Trump the villain regardless of the facts. What was actually a focused enforcement action targeting individuals in the country legally was recast by Newsom as some kind of humanitarian crisis. It's not about truth anymore, it's about optics and outrage. And Newsom, ever the opportunist, didn't miss his chance to score political points. California doesn't need more political theater. It needs leadership rooted in reality. But instead of stepping up, Newsom went even further. He challenged former ICE Director Tom Homan directly, daring him to come arrest him. That's not strength. That's a stunt. People are starting to see through it. Asterisk.
Hands off these poor people. They're just trying to live their lives, man. Trying to live their lives, paying their taxes. Been here 10 years. The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
That's how desperate he sounded. Newsom was flailing, and he needed the public on his side fast. So what did he do? He played the emotion card hard, said exactly what he thought people wanted to hear, hoping to whip up public sentiment and paint. Himself as the heroic defender of the marginalized, he wanted that photo op moment, the tough guy standing up for the voiceless. But scratch the surface, and what do you find? A politician obsessed with optics, not solutions. This wasn't about the people. This was about Gavin Newsom's image. He wasn't an illegal alien, so of course he hadn't committed any immigration crime, and he knew it. That's exactly why he had the nerve to publicly challenge ICE Director Tom Homan, daring him to make an arrest. It was all for show. He knew there was no real threat, which made the entire stunt feel like cheap political theater, loud, dramatic. And utterly hollow anyway. Tom H. Homan responded to Gavin Newsom's cheap politics asterisk.
The reporter asked me, well, could Governor Newsom or Mayor Bass be arrested? I said, well, no one's above the law. If they cross the line and commit a crime, absolutely they can. So there was no discussion about arresting Newsom. And so, you know, what he's done, he's failed that state. He waited 2 days of that city burning and people getting hurt, officers being assaulted before he made any declaration of an unlawful assembly. He's late to the game. President Trump isn't late to the game.
Tom Homan didn't hold back, went straight for the jugular, tearing into Gavin Newsom's empty political stunt. If Newsom really wanted to be arrested, Homan said, then he should actually try breaking the law, commit a real crime, and then he'd get his wish. Brutal? Yes, but brutally honest. That clapback cut deep, exposing just how performative and hollow Newsom's grandstanding truly was, and Homan wasn't done. He placed the blame for the chaos squarely on Newsom's shoulders. While the streets of Los Angeles were burning, businesses were looted, law-abiding citizens feared for their lives, Newsom stood frozen. For 2 straight days, he did nothing. No leadership, no plan, just silence. And when President Trump finally stepped in, deploying the National Guard to restore order, Newsom had the audacity to complain. He criticized Trump for acting without his permission after he had proven to the entire country that he was either unwilling or incapable of acting at all. But trust me, Homan wasn't finished yet. He had plenty more to say. We're about to get into it.
Keep hearing this term ICE raids, ICE raids. What happened with how this riot started is that ICE was serving a series of criminal warrants at a business being investigated for money laundering, customs fraud, and serious violations on sending money to criminal cartels that in Colombia and Mexico that fund criminal cartel activities in the United States. It's a part of an overall conspiracy that ICE is investigating. So we're arresting bad people. We were enforcing laws and following up on a serious criminal investigation on cartel financing. So that's exactly what ICE did. And ICE took a lot of bad people off the street that day. We arrested a sexual predator, we arrested gang members, we arrested somebody that had an armed robbery conviction.
Let's set the record straight. What exactly was ICE doing during that operation? They weren't arresting families out for ice cream or children on their way to school. They were targeting criminal serious offenders who had built a sophisticated money laundering network funneling cash to violent drug cartels in Colombia and Mexico. These weren't harmless immigration cases. These were organized operatives bankrolling deadly enterprises. ICE's mission in that operation was about national security and public safety. But what did the legacy media report? That ICE was kicking down doors, ripping children from their parents, and terrorizing innocent immigrant families. A complete distortion of the facts. And guess who helped drive that false narrative? Gavin Newsom. He took the podium and vilified ICE agents, painting them as heartless monsters. While completely ignoring the dangerous criminals being pulled off the streets, instead of standing with law enforcement, Newsom chose to gaslight the public. He knew the truth, but pushing a lie made him look like a hero to his base. It wasn't leadership, it was political theater at its worst. And Tom Homan, he called him out again. His scathing response sent Newsom into yet another public meltdown. And this time, even more people were watching.
He's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us.
Gavin Newsom just couldn't help himself. He had to put on a show. Ever the performer, he stepped in front of the cameras, voice trembling, eyes glassy, clearly trying to squeeze out a tear or two. It was political theater at its most obvious, transparent, and painfully staged. And if that wasn't enough, he took it a step further, calling on other governors to rise up and resist Donald Trump. Resist what exactly? Law enforcement doing its job? This is the trademark tactic of the woke left, emotional blackmail, dressed up as leadership. No facts, no real solutions, just theatrics. They lean on optics instead of outcomes, inflame outrage instead of addressing problems. And when it comes to crime and public safety, they'd rather shame the public with sob stories than protect the communities they claim to care about. Newsom's latest performance was just another act in a long-running drama, one where facts are sidelined, truth is twisted, and leadership is replaced with empty virtue signaling. Asterisk.
I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear, but I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
In the end, Gavin Newsom's performance unraveled faster than he could wipe away his staged tears. What began as a calculated, camera-ready attempt to vilify ICE and crown himself as a moral hero quickly collapsed under the crushing weight of facts, public backlash, and a growing wave of national scrutiny. What was meant to be his shining moment of political theater turned into a slow motion train wreck, and the whole country was watching. Let's be clear, this wasn't leadership. This was a production. From the trembling voice to the well-timed pauses and emotional sound bites, Newsom's outrage wasn't genuine. It was rehearsed. He wasn't speaking truth to power. He was pandering to a carefully curated narrative designed to make him the darling of the activist left. But he underestimated. One thing people are done with the games. Bill Maher, of all people, accidentally pulled back the curtain. In a segment that was supposed to lightly mock political hypocrisy, Maher ended up exposing something far more dangerous: Newsom's complete lack of substance beneath the slogans. It wasn't a takedown. It was an unintentional truth bomb. The kind that hits harder because it wasn't meant to. Mel Gibson, unfiltered as ever, didn't hold back. He torched Newsom's credibility in front of a live audience, questioning how a man so eager to call others fascists is comfortable ignoring the chaos, violence, and criminal activity right in his own backyard. It wasn't about politics. It was about hypocrisy. And Gibson made it impossible to ignore. And then came Tom Homan, former ICE director, who delivered the final blow. No theatrics. No Hollywood polish. Just cold, hard truth. He laid out the facts about border security, about ICE's role in keeping communities safe, and about how Newsom's policies were making it easier for cartels, gangs, and human traffickers to operate in California. It was devastating because it was undeniable. Instead of engaging with those facts, instead of addressing the real concerns of Californians watching their neighborhoods fall apart, Newsom doubled down. He stood at a podium and called for other governors to resist the Trump administration because, apparently, resisting Trump is easier than fixing homelessness, cracking down on fentanyl, or keeping families safe, rather than offering solutions. Newsom weaponized emotion. He spun false narratives, portrayed ICE agents as villains, and tried to manufacture outrage where there should have been responsibility. He played to the woke mob like a seasoned actor auditioning for the role of America's moral compass. But what he forgot is that real people are hurting. Real communities are suffering. And no amount of virtue signaling can cover up a leadership vacuum. His outrage, performative. His threats, hollow. His leadership, non-existent. Gavin Newsom isn't standing up for justice. He's standing in front of a mirror, perfecting the angle, rehearsing the lines, and hoping the lighting is just right. Meanwhile, California burns. The streets of San Francisco are lined with needles and tents. Cartels are stronger than ever. Crime is up. And families are fleeing the state not because of ICE. It's not because of Trump, but because of Newsom's failed policies and even worse priorities. Californians deserve better than this. They deserve a leader who confronts reality, not one who crafts fantasy. They deserve someone who solves problems, not someone who pretends to cry while dodging accountability. And now, thanks to a few bold voices who had the courage to speak out, the mask is off. Gavin Newsom isn't a hero. He's not a progressive pioneer. He's just another political actor who finally got caught in his own carefully scripted play. That wraps up today's video. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Gavin Newsom has any real answers, or is he just another talking head in a designer suit? Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.